Okay, let's take 30 more seconds to finish those conversations. Okay, cool. So what do you think of that question? Have you been thinking about your favorite teachers lately? Yeah? Awesome, yeah. For those of us who are in the education space, sometimes we think back and reflect on, who were those teachers that inspired us and motivated us into our learning journey. So that's awesome that you have those teachers in mind. I would love to hear maybe like one or two participants just kind of share with us what was that awesome factor from the teacher that they remembered. Just really quickly, who would like to volunteer? Just raise your hand. Yes, okay, 1 and 2. And I'm gonna invite you to come here so I can pass you the mic. So just say your name, where you're from, and who was your favorite teacher and why was that person your favorite teacher?
Be careful. Hi everyone, I'm Tamara from Armenia, and I remember my lecture from Yerevan State University. And he is important for me because he gave me not just information or knowledge, but he gave me ideas to think about, and that is why I remember him very often. And as now myself, I'm an educator, I'm not a teacher, but I work with kids, so I try to give them more than they can find in internet today, so I want to give them ideas to think and the ways to teach them the ways to think. So this is the most important point for me, to teach them to think about and to think deeper.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And you already have Mike there. Awesome. Go for it.
Yeah. I'm Vasia, and my favorite teacher was from the university. Who taught basics of programming, but also what made her very favorite was that she had very personal approach to everyone, knowing everyone by heart, knowing the problems they have in the studies and their personal life, in everything. And even years after this, we'll meet on the street and she will tell something very relevant to and very personal about you. And this is about hundreds of students every year, and you can imagine how big is this. She knew everybody. And in our team, Frank's favorite teacher was the one from elementary school, right? But a teacher who connected all the dots. This is what I remember. It sounds very, very nice. And Håkan's most favorite teacher was the one who taught him how to read.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Cool. So yeah, teachers are awesome. We all agree on that. So we are going to now start thinking on some tools that helps teachers and that helps us to plan some activities around education. So the tool that the thinking that I would want us to focus on is backwards planning. Raise your hand if you have heard of this term before. Awesome, cool. So why should we use backwards planning? Well, it helps us identify the knowledge and the skills that our students are going to acquire through the events that we organize, through the workshops that we organize, and put those front and center. And it helps us ensure that our Wikimedia education activities have the impact that they intend. What does that look like? There are many models of backwards planning, backwards design, and Pinterest. Do you guys use Pinterest? Yeah, it's awesome. So actually, if you go on Pinterest and if you start typing backwards design templates, backwards planning models, you will see a lot of different options and some just random pictures in there, of course, because that's Pinterest. But basically, backwards planning has three main stages, three main steps. When we organize activities, we usually tend to think, okay, I want to do an editathon. I want to do a photo walk. Backward design makes us think not on the activity itself first, but makes us think about the objectives. We want to organize a photo walk, but why? What do we want to accomplish through that activity? So with backward design, we always do this first. We identify the desired results. What is going to look like? What is the goal going to look like at the end of the activity that we engage in? So we identify the desired results by asking us this question. What do you need people to know and be able to do by the end of your activity, by the end of your workshop, of your training, of your event? And that can take many forms. But there are some steps as well that will help us into writing a good learning outcome. We start always with an action verb. So students or participants will be able to create, design, remember, understand, design. Did I repeat that? Then you write a statement. What is it that they're going to be able to create, to understand, to remember? And then we make sure that the focus is on the learner. Because, like I mentioned yesterday, you really, really want to think about what skills your students are acquiring through this activity. Not just focusing on how many articles are going to be generated as a result of your event or as a result of your training. Think about the students. And I mentioned the 21st Century Skills Framework. So the 21st Century Skills Framework makes us to think about what the students are learning in the school in a more holistic approach, beyond just the content. We think about life and career skills. Are students really living our education experiences prepared to face what life throws at them? Learning and innovation skills as well, and information media and technology skills, which is kind of like usually our first instinct to think of Wikimedia projects associated to this area, right? And all of these skills are encompassed to the core subjects, so like maths, languages, science, etc. Today, I would like to ask you to focus on 4 C's that are connected to the learning and innovation skills. The 4 C's are creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. Can you start thinking about what would be desired results, what goals could you accomplish connected to these areas through a Wikimedia project? Maybe collaboration is like the first that comes to mind. When students engage in creating content for Wikimedia projects, they don't work alone. They work with other people, whether it's the people that are right next to them, or people on the other side of the world. Or maybe critical thinking as well, and communication, of course. But what about creativity? Are there any Wikimedia projects that you think that could help foster students' creativity? Maybe, not so much. Commons, for example. Good. So there are these 4 C's are very broad, right? You can't just say that your goal is to help students increase their creativity. That is too abstract. That doesn't tell us anything. So we can still, go into one of those 4 C's and go deeper into thinking, what does that mean? And what does that look like tangibly? So around critical thinking and problem solving, how can we know that the students are getting better or are improving their critical thinking skills? We can see that if students are generating good ideas. And even in that, we can go deeper. What does a good idea mean? Are there bad ideas? And then on communication skills, students are writing essays well. Same thing. What is a good essay? Or they are expressing ideas clearly in short written text. They're able to synthesize their ideas. So right now, that was one step forward. So right now, the reason why I put you in pairs, of course, was to do some dialogue. And this is going to be very brief, because we have very limited time. But I would like you to think of, back at those teachers that you said that were your favorite. You are that teacher now. You know, you are your favorite teacher. You have all of these awesome characteristics and awesome skills and awesome rapport with your students. And you have been working on Wikimedia projects for the past 1 year. You know how to use Wikipedia, you know how to use Wikisource, you are very familiar with them, and you want to integrate them in your classroom. And you want to focus on helping your students develop one of these 4 C's. So, you know, and think about very specific things. So I would like you to take just 5 minutes to talk to the person next to you and try writing a desired result connected to one of those 4 C's that you think could be achievable through the use of a Wikimedia project. So just like, you know, don't try to be like super. It doesn't have to be perfect. We only have 5 minutes, and this is a very theoretical exercise. So get in pairs and, for example, think, oh, I want my students to be able to be better critical thinkers. How do you express that with this in mind? Does that make sense? So it's who can explain what the activity is? Because there are slides. Right. Of course, it doesn't have to be a workshop. It can be a program. It can be a whole class on your semester that you are trying to design. But just think about one skill that you would like your students to develop by using a Wikimedia project. You know, what do you want your students to be able to do or know at the end of your intervention, but that is connected to these 4 C's. You know, like your goal is not to have your students write a perfect encyclopedic article on Wikipedia, but think more about these learning skills. Maybe your goal is for your students to be able to discern what is an article that is written with a neutral point of view versus an article that shows a lot of biased information. Or you want your students to express ideas more clearly or more concisely. Or you want your students to understand different points of view. You know? Try to play around with this kind of skill statements and use that as your final goal. Is that a little bit more clear now? Okay, let's try to work in pairs, just 5 minutes, and I'll go down and help out as well. I'm just gonna time it. Okay, I think we took a little bit more time than we planned, but it was really great to hear all of your ideas and your process as well. I noticed that as we were talking about, like what is that desired result, we still were thinking about some of the steps and some of the activities. Remember to really focus on the goal. At the end of your intervention, whether it's a workshop, a program, a class, how do you see your students? What knowledge or what skills do they have now that you have finished with this intervention? So that is your goal, your desired result. Once you have established that, then it's time for evaluation. So you have to determine acceptable evidence. That means, how do you know that your students have reached that desired result that you established at the beginning? So, for example, a team had as a desired result the following statement: my students will be able to work in a team and show effective leadership skills. How do you know that your students are able to work in a team and they are effective leaders? What can we do to really, really know that they have reached that point? So, as it says here, nothing that we do to or for our students is more important than our assessment of their work and the feedback that we give them on it. The result of our assessments influence our students for the rest of their lives and careers. I'm sure that if you start thinking back about your own learning experiences, you can think of when your teachers gave you really thoughtful feedback and really constructive feedback, really kind feedback, versus, just getting a grade and that was it, and no other comment around it, no other thinking around it. So, how will you know that people learn? How will you know that people know what you wanted them to know? You can do a performance task. This is the best way to see if what was meant to happen, happened. What is a performance task? It's any learning activity or assessment that asks students to demonstrate their knowledge, to show what they do, to show what they understand, and show their skill level on this. They show you a tangible product or performance that serves as your evidence of learning. But this is not all. You could also do smaller assessments that will help you understand the same thing if your students know what you wanted them to know. This can be quizzes, exit slips, charts, concept maps, think, pair, share, just simple pair discussion. That could help you a lot to understand if your students really grasped the concept that you wanted them to understand. And also reflection journals. Self-assessment is really powerful to understand at which point of the learning journey the students are. And it also helps students to understand their own process. So think back about your desired results. Like going back to the example that I mentioned. My goal is for my students to be able to work as a team effectively and show their leadership skills. How do I know that? Do I quiz them? Do I make an observation list to make sure that they have good team working skills? Do I look at their product result? If they are working together on an article or on digitizing documents, do I know if they were, do I see at the final result, will that let me know that they worked as a team? Do I ask them to do reflection journals so that I can read their experiences if they actually connected? So that is your turn. That is for you to decide now. So let's take again 5 minutes to decide what is going to be the assessment that you use to make sure that your students reach that goal. So let's start now, and this time I'll try to be more effective with the timekeeping. Okay, so that was a lot faster. So I saw really great ideas. Some of you were discussing about peer evaluation, asking your students to give input to each other through writing a text or a journal entry. And we were discussing with some groups about oral presentations or presentations in graphic, or even showing that the final product follows some standards that you would have set at the beginning as well. So you have your goal, you have in mind an assessment method. How are you going to check that you achieve your goal? Now, this is the step when you start designing the activities that you are going to do with your students, which at the beginning we were discussing, is usually what we start with. With backward science, it's completely flipped. So what activities are going to help your students achieve that desired result? So this is when you start thinking about the different steps that you're going to take in your classroom, in your community center, wherever you're designing them. What we were talking about, it can be a workshop, it can be a program. What will be the best intervention to achieve that desired result? Can we achieve that result in a 1-hour workshop? I know that for this workshop, it's kind of tricky. Can we achieve that result in maybe a longer intervention? Maybe we need like 2 months, 3 months, and so on. There are some guidelines here that can help you think about your activities. And this is a strategy where to. So, how will I explain to students what they will be learning and why? How do I set those expectations? How will I hook and engage learners? How do I keep them motivated? How will I equip students to master the identified standards? How am I going to transmit that knowledge? How will I encourage students to rethink previous learning and revision and refinement as well? A lot of our students, especially if they're older learners, they come with very already preconceived ideas and very preconceived ways of doing things. How do I help them shake those things up a little bit if we need to? How will I promote learner self-evaluation and reflection? Do I ask them to keep a journal? Do I ask them to tweet about what they learn every lesson, maybe? Do I ask them to draw a picture? How will I tailor the activities to meet the needs of different learners? That is super important, and usually where teachers spend more time thinking as well. And finally, how will the activities be organized to maximize engagement? What sequence will work best? Do I start by just having students come and sit down, open your laptops, go to that page, or do I start with helping them, activate themselves? Maybe they're just back after lunch, they're tired, everyone wants to take a nap. How do I avoid that sleepiness after lunch, What is that sequence of activities? So there are other considerations, like I said, time. How much time do you have to develop those activities? The space. Do you have enough room for everyone? How do you seat them? Is that going to be effective to achieve your means? And the resources, does everyone have computers? Do everyone have, maybe they don't have computers, but they have cell phones. Can I use the cell phones to achieve these results that I want? Maybe I need to tweak a little bit my objectives and my vision. And yeah, that is, I know that this was very rushed, but I hope that this got you thinking of different ways to approach how you develop your Wikimedia education projects. These slides are going to be available on the page, and you notice that there were many links to the different strategies, different tools that I presented, so you can consult those with more depth. But before I said goodbye, I just wanted to check if there were any questions, maybe? Just raise your hand. Where did you say we could find the slides? Oh, yes. So in the program, there is a link to this presentation. I will put a link to the slides there as well. Yeah. Well, I think that's it for me. I just want to thank you so much for being engaged. I know that some of you have no experience before with education activities, but the fact that you are here and that you are interested is a lot, and is a really brave thing to do, to come just to a space where you have no experience and start learning. So kudos to you. That is awesome. And if you need more support, if you want to talk to me or another member of my team, you can find us on Outreach Wikimedia. And I'll also be around during lunch if you want to just chat and hang out. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Say again? Oh, and come to the roadmap tomorrow, to the roadmap workshop. Me and Shani will be leading that too. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.